Hello and welcome to the Jerusalem Post Election Arena. I'm Gil Hoffman, and we have here today Yuli Edelstein, the Speaker of the Knesset from the Likud. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Yuli, I want to take you back to 9 months ago. 9 months ago, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu begged and pleaded with you to run for President of Israel. And apparently, he knew what he was talking about, because last night it was reported that Reuven Rivlin has already decided that if this race ends up being as close as it's looking right now, he's going to demand a national unity government which would end the career of Netanyahu, if not immediately, then in only 2 years. Do you regret not accepting Netanyahu's pleading to be the president of Israel?
The short answer is no. I think that the position of the Speaker of the Knesset is one of the most exciting positions one can get, and I was not even considering to switch it for the presidency after only about, a year on the job. Now, as far as the issue of the national unity government is concerned, I know and respect our President Reuven Rivlin, and with all the due respect, I still think that the decision is with the voters. If Likud will be big enough and strong enough to create what they call a national coalition, then this will be the first choice. Definitely, if the situation would be that either new elections or going together, I guess we'll get in the polls, what is it, your guess, 90% of the Israeli citizens that would say we don't want new elections, we want a unity government. But having said all that, the decision will be taken by the voters on March 17.
What do you think about the behavior of Reuven Rivlin in trying to force a unity government on the two sides?
It's a very natural behavior for any president. The president symbolized the unity. I think that if we go back to the archives, we'll find many statements of that kind by most of the Israeli presidents. But once again, when there is a clear-cut victory of one of their sides, no one is talking about national unity government. These remarks were the exact result, or the immediate result, of this draw that we see in most of the polls. And we still have 1 week with the voters to decide whether they want people with basically opposite views. By the way, I do believe, especially the young generation in the Labour Party, when they say what they think about security and economy and social issues, and I basically disagree with everything they are saying. So I can respect them as members of Knesset that are very active and they have their own views. I have difficulty seeing how the two parties that are so different in their basic views, Likud and Labour, operate together, not just survive and stick to their chairs, but rather do things for the country.
Well, I mean, you presided over a Knesset where the right and the left attacked each other a lot. If they were forced to form a government together, Netanyahu and Herzog, how long would it last?
Well, I can't predict. Once again, if it's about doing things, I'm not sure that it will be the most effective government we've seen in this country. By the way, the history of the unity government shows that there were some that were pretty successful in doing things, and there were some that were a total failure. Stagnation, I guess, would be the best definition for their period of ruling. So I can't tell you how long it will last, but this time, by the way, I do have to say that we could continue as a government. I mean, if the only goal of Netanyahu, and he's sometimes accused of that by some of your colleagues, is to survive on the Balfour Street in the Prime Minister's residence, he didn't have a problem. He could survive for another half year, another year. But in terms of doing things, in terms of really running the country and promoting certain issues, we were at a dead end. I'm very much afraid that the national unity government will bring us to the dead end very quickly.
Now, let's talk about running the country. So yesterday, when Netanyahu needed to send someone to deal with the Palestinian issue, he sent you. We've seen how there have been many politicians declare themselves candidates for finance minister, for defense minister. There's not been a single candidate who declared himself the candidate for foreign minister. By sending you yesterday, Netanyahu seemed to indicate maybe you are his candidate for foreign minister. After being Knesset speaker, someone with the perfect English that you have, and it was someone who's so worldly, are you a natural candidate for foreign minister?
I'm a natural candidate to support Netanyahu and help Likud to win the elections. After that, there will be, and you started with that, very difficult, I would say, challenging coalition negotiations. When we finish the two things, the victory, as I hope, in the elections and forming a new coalition, then we will start, and I'm not even saying we weren't, then we will start arguing about our own positions, our own jobs. But I think that the situation is not ripe even to start discussing that.
Okay, so you spoke yesterday on the Palestinian issue. Please explain to people watching this, what is Netanyahu's position on the Palestinian issue? Because even after we received 3 different statements yesterday from various bodies of Likud in the Prime Minister's office, I don't get it.
Well, the situation is very simple. Netanyahu believes and he understands that all these statements, by the way, some of them he made himself about the support of the idea of the two-state solution, are irrelevant because of the situation in the area and because of the Palestinian position. So it's very interesting to play ping-pong with ourselves, and you know that I'm fond of playing ping-pong. But when we're talking about serious issues, the only serious position could be, A, we are going to manage the conflict the way that there will be as little terror attacks as possible, as little conflicts as possible, as little international pressure as possible. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that it's high time that we start really promoting real cooperation in our area. Not immediately now when with this Pavlovian reaction when I see a colleague of mine from one of the neighboring countries, we immediately have to decide where the constant borders would be, the permanent borders would be, or what we do about Jerusalem and the holy sites. Instead, I would offer, and Likud would offer, cooperating on water resources, agriculture, environment, all these issues that are important for both constituencies, not instead of the future negotiations, but in order to create a different atmosphere. Right now, you can be in favor of 1 state, 2 states, 15 states. It doesn't take you anywhere.
Okay, well, we have coming up in another 2 weeks, Abbas will turn 80. He's not going to be around forever. If the situation changed and there was a Palestinian leader who had not rejected proposals time and time again, you still think that Netanyahu would form a Palestinian state in negotiations with that leader?
I first of all think that, I'll say something that I just hope that none of the Likud headquarters would be watching me saying that, because that would be, I guess, my last interview before the elections. But even if Zahava Galon becomes prime minister, and I know her, she's a Zionist, she wants only good things for our country, she wouldn't sign a permanent agreement with the Palestinians. Because right now, whoever is their leader, he or she won't be able, in their case, you don't have to say he or she, he won't be able to sell any agreement with Israel, with any little, 1 centimeter concessions to his own constituency, to the Palestinians. Right now, it's about having it all. The 67 borders, all of Jerusalem, all the, whatever they say, 4 million, 5 million, 6 million of so-called Palestinian refugees going back into the state of Israel. There will be no compromise. So that's why I'm saying that it's not just the Israeli position. The Israeli position is important in order not to cause more damage by saying I'm prepared to give this and I'm prepared to give that. But in practical terms, I don't think that during the coming term Netanyahu will be challenged with this huge challenge of what exactly he says about the permanent borders and what exactly he says about Jerusalem. Is just not likely. Well,
now this issue has become an issue in the campaign, which was very unexpected. Is this what will finally wake up the Israeli right? You had thousands of leftists in the street in Tel Aviv last Saturday night. There's a demonstration being planned of the right, but we've seen the right rather quiet. Has the wake-up call finally come?
Well, first of all, I don't think I would surprise you if I would say that the event Saturday night of the left was a failure. I mean, objectively speaking, I myself organized demonstrations of 50 and 60,000 people on the same square. So if it says in the papers there were 35,000, I guess 20,000 were there, which is not a bad number, but definitely not what they were expecting. But in terms of the right-wing or the national camp rally there, I don't think that we as Likud leadership are involved in it in any way. We don't have to pretend or to stay away from it the way the left wing did because of the private money involved and because all these funny organizations, funny inverted commas, all the time claim that they don't have any connections to the parties, they just want Netanyahu out of the office. We don't have to play that game. We really don't have any illegal money supporting us, but at the same time I don't think it would be proper as a response to that left-wing rally to get Netanyahu and I don't know, Bennett or Eli Yishai or whoever personally involved in organizing this rally. If there will be popular support, people will go out into the streets. I'm not sure the parties should organize it.
Okay, a lot of our people watching this are Reform and conservative Jews around the world, and they're very concerned that in the next government, the ultra-Orthodox will be there no matter what. How much of what has been done to limit their power, to require the ultra-Orthodox to serve in the army, and things that affect the Reform and conservatives that has been done over the previous government in terms of funding Reform and conservative rabbis, the area near the Western Wall for non-Orthodox prayer, how much of that is going to be repealed over the next few years, with the ultra-Orthodox being presumably part of the coalition?
Yeah, I beg to disagree with your basic assumption. I think that, as we all witnessed during the past term, when the ultra-Orthodox, for that matter, are in the opposition, you can't really move things. You know, all this big fuss about the legislation, drafting them all into the army. Well, we both experienced traffic jams on our way here. None of the traffic jams was because of thousands of ultra-Orthodox guys running to local military office in order to report to IDF. You know, I think that there is no practical change and probably even damage in terms of the numbers of those who get recruited to IDF from the ultra-Orthodox community. So the time to deal with all these issues is when they're in the coalition. They're difficult clients. I negotiated with the ultra-Orthodox community about many issues concerning new immigrants in this country. I can tell you, after that, you sweat like after a good hour in a fitness center. But this is the only way to really change things. Just attacking or just legislating doesn't lead you anywhere. As far as Reform and conservative Jews around the world are concerned, I would always suggest to check the record. When Netanyahu was prime minister, whether your obedience service was in the ministerial position or the position of the Speaker of the Knesset, and even some other terrible, inverted commas, guys like Bennett, for example, who is leading the National Religious Party. He was a minister of, among other things, diaspora affairs in the last 2 years. I don't think there was any damage done to the Reform and conservative community. I would even say the other way around, that they were very well received in the Knesset, in the government, and even there were attempts to solve certain issues. So I would sincerely suggest not to start partisan politics about these issues. I could only regret that some of the local leadership went into politics. I think it's their personal decision, it's their perfect right, but it doesn't mean that the movements should follow and start playing partisan politics in Israel.
So the last question is really about electoral reform. I was at Netanyahu's opening event of the campaign where he said with great fanfare, this will be the issue that the Likud will run on, electoral reform to ensure that the next government will last for 4 years. Since that night, I haven't heard anyone in the Likud speak about it at all. Is that still what the Likud intends to do if it forms the next government? And what needs to be done in order to bring about real stability so we won't have elections in another 2 years?
Well, the answer to this question is in the second part of your question, actually, because I think that the last thing we need is another electoral reform like that of direct elections of the Prime Minister that would exist for a number of years and then would be cancelled because it turned out to be a total failure. I would strongly suggest that after we form the coalition, we have some kind of interministerial committee or coalition committee, and probably even bringing, surprise, surprise, some members of the opposition parties into these discussions, in order to start thinking how we, on one hand, stabilize the Israeli political system. On the other hand, we still have a voice for everyone in the Knesset, because Knesset is still the only institution in Israel where every small minority is represented in this or that form. They all have a voice. For me, it's no less important than the stability of the government. And if we manage to find some ways to start reforms that will probably make the governments last longer and make them more stable without hurting the total representation we have in the Knesset, then I would strongly suggest that we go for it. But all these hysterical, moves because we see that the system is not exactly working perfectly, we'll have to change this and we'll have to change that, and then the results, as I've said, will be not lasting and definitely will be not positive.
Thank you very much, Yuli Edelstein, for being with us, and thank you for being here on our election arena throughout this campaign.